my friends, welcome back. We're taking up a few Marian actions. There are actually hundreds and hundreds of them. We're only taking a very small sample since Fatima to today. So let's start at the beginning. That's what Sarah did very naturally. And so, what was the first Marian apparition after Our Lady assumed into heaven? And the church holds, and I think that's fair to say that in that way, because it was a sense of, right, the different ways of approbation and the sense of the faithful, and the bishop and certainly there in Spain hold to this. So we have a lot of ecclesiastical support to lean into, and it's with Saint James while he was living in Spain, and Our Lady was living in Jerusalem. Okay. When Cincy is going to, and I think it is, so we're going to go into yet another, This is the City of God by, the Venerable Mary of Agreda. Okay, so Venerable. So we have yet again a title of a church, some sort of a church stamp of approval. Now, so it's in this book, Mary of Agreda is going to have a vision of Our Lady and St. James. Now, we're going to wade into the controversy of where was Our Lady. Remember, we took that up with her assumption. Right. Was she in Ephesus? Was she in Jerusalem? And Sarah and I came to a decision that she was in Jerusalem. Now, Mary Agreda is going to say she's in Ephesus. And when Cincy is going to say she's in Ephesus. So then what do we do? So we got different, and that's why this is not necessarily binding.
Right.
I think what we can, and I go through, I do a copy and paste of this from those episodes, and I also have links to it, and why Jerusalem will end up being favored. Mostly the Catholic Encyclopedia is one such place one can find for holding for Jerusalem. But this business with Ephesus is somewhat recent in scholarship, though it doesn't seem necessarily recent to us because that's all that perhaps some of us have heard. All right. But in any event, what do we make of it? Well, we know that Mary was assumed, and we know she didn't go to Spain.
Right.
And we have from ecclesiastical authorities that James the Greater, who is an apostle, talks about his visions with Our Lady. So regardless of one's opinion about that, she certainly wasn't in Spain, and St. James had something to do with Our Lady. And that was what we understand in written form to be the first apparition of her.
Right.
And,
that's pretty early.
It is.
It's interesting. So does that sort of date when her assumption is? Do you know if there's a chronological date that's sort of given for her assumption? I always figured she was probably around 60, but I guess she would have been older.
I thought it was 80, but I'm not.
Right.
I'm not sure. I'd take a look at that.
Right.
And she would go. So what is she? She's encouraged.
Well, she would have been 14 plus 33. I mean, and then she would have at least been around through probably the martyrdom of.
Oh, here it is. By the reckoning of Transitus Maria, Mary would have been aged no more than 50. So when she's no more than 50 at the time of her death. So that's one scholarly opinion. But then
that seems early.
Yes. Yes.
Although not necessarily. There isn't. I mean, that would have been time for her to have lived with John. John would have reached his majority, I'm sure, at that point, and or old enough to. I mean, he would have already in the Jewish tradition, right, at 13. But I mean that he would have been a young man at that point, certainly.
Okay, so the early sources are summarized in this way by the Catholic Encyclopedia. The apocryphal works of the 2nd to the 4th century are all favorable to the Jerusalem tradition. According to the Acts of St. John by Procurus, written 160-170 by Lynceus, the evangelist went to Ephesus accompanied by Procurus alone, and at a very advanced stage, that is, after Mary's death. And then there were some other letters written about 370 that she spent the remainder of her days in Jerusalem. There was never any tradition connecting Mary's death and burial with the city of Ephesus. And since Mary's an embodiment of the New Jerusalem, it seemed apropos that she would be there. But it's very clear that Our Lady was not in Spain.
Not in Spain. Yes, that is for sure. Yeah. Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, I guess it would be more surprising, I think, if she hadn't appeared immediately than it would be less surprising, I think.
Yeah.
That her constant maternal care even is being expressed from the very first moment of her assumption. And, if we believe that the resurrected body, shall we say, has properties that permit it to move through time and space and walls and material, there's no reason why, if Christ could be, not in the room with them and then in the locked room with them and then in the locked room with them, there really is there's no theological reason why we would have any issues with Mary being able to appear now if she is in glory. And really the same would be, and she does have her body, so.
She absolutely does. Absolutely does. Absolutely does. I was looking to see, I thought I had see if I had a quote. We're having a thunderstorm here in Texas, so I don't know if that's going to be
Right.
a challenge. All right, my friends. Till the next episode. Fides, Oratio.
Right.